This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Druids? This is Steven, your host with Phantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friend Ryan on, and we're talking about The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson. This is the first book of the Eden saga, which I believe there are four books planned. The second book is called The Bitter Crown. The third book, which actually just recently came out, is The Damned King. And then there'll be some fourth book coming out, I don't know, year and a half, couple of years or so. I'm not sure what the if there's a name on that one or not. But this is a book that I read a little bit ago. Ryan just finished, and I have read The Bitter Crown as well. So I'm kind of looking at this with a little bit of a retrospective, and Ryan's coming at it from a recently read, full of hot takes perspective.
Now, you read this for Fantology Book Club, right?
Uh-huh. We did this in Vintage Book a little bit ago. I think it was around the time that The Bitter Crown came out. And we actually
Hmm.
had Justin come on to our Discord and do a little chat with us. He answered some questions, and it was a good time. It was really gracious of him to hop on and entertain us.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. I don't even really know why I decided to read this book right now, except for the fact that I don't usually participate in the Fantology Book Club, but I did see he joined our server and that um he like hopped on the discussion with everyone, which I thought was really cool. So I think that's kind of what put it on my radar. But yeah, I went into this book really without any expectations. I didn't even read the synopsis or anything. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I'm excited to discuss it with you.
Nice. Yeah, in my so without before I went back and reviewed for our review here, my impressions were is very D&D-esque, and we can do a little bit of non-spoiler stuff too before we talk plot
Okay.
things. But then the majority of it, from what I remember, goes through the bunch of events. It's nothing too crazy's going on. It's kind of your typical fantasy story. And then at the end, there's a massive twist that like rewrites everything. And I thought that was I mean, I don't know if I wanted to say mind-blowing, but it was a larger twist. Most books do not are not this ambitious in what they want to pull off. It's kind of like the twist the level of like Mistborn, Final Empire type of thing, where it
Hmm.
just like recontextualizes everything, and you have to go back and maybe even I bet on a reread. It's probably fun to like put some of the pieces together because I think he does a pretty good job of setting up clues and kind of just some weird things that are happening, and you kind of dismiss them as the reader, but they stick in your mind, and then by the end you're like, oh, that's what it all is.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. And it was interesting because the whole time I was reading this book, I could I felt like, something weird was going on, but I couldn't quite like pin down exactly what it was. And
Hmm.
so I felt like it was a satisfying setup as well as it paid off. But I also did like the characters um and the plot, the overall plot for which the twist was part of. But I'm excited to explore further in the series. So definitely something that I enjoyed enough that I want to continue on.
Nice. That'll be good for me too, because I can refresh on The Bitter Crown, and then I have not read The Damned King yet. Came out just a month ago, month or two ago. So it's pretty recent. Haven't got to it yet. It's on the TBR for sure, but this is good motivation to continue going with the series because the second book is pretty good as well.
Do you know do you know how long the series is planned to be?
It's four.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
four books.
recently book 3 out of 4 was recently released.
Right.
All right,
Right.
so we're
Exactly.
already beating Pat Rothfuss.
Yeah. I guess if we compare everything to Pat Rothfuss, yes, there is more content here than
Yeah.
King Killer. Yeah, these are beefier books. They're both about 800-ish pages. So you've got a pretty thick story here. and there's a lot of content. It's a pretty deep world. You kind of jump right into the action, where you're picking up right from the resolution of a big thing that is kind of just wrapped up, and then we're on to the next, and like a team is assembled, and we go off on a quest. And then as the characters move along, you kind of piece together more of what's happening, or at least what you think is happening. And I think it's a good storytelling book in terms of like the pacing moves along fast enough where you're never too bogged down in trying to understand all the details. It's kind of doled out in sensible intervals, and then as that's happening, there's action going on. So it's a really well crafted story.
Right. And so it's interesting that you brought up like the D&D influences because that's not necessarily something that I was aware of going into it. But I, I kept like I kept thinking that this was like more, it felt like traditional fantasy. But then when I like, thought of like the different elements of the plot, I was like, this is not like very traditional. It's a little bit different um from what I was thinking. And when now that you brought up D&D, I think that was kind of like this sense of familiarity that I was getting from the story is, it feels like, you're on an adventure with different like character made or player made characters, I guess.
Hmm.
And so it just kind of clicked when you said that.
Yeah, there's a party full of characters with different classes and backgrounds, kind of a diverse cast that have been sent off on a mission. Like from a very
Hmm.
base perspective, 10,000 foot view, you're like, oh, this could be a D&D campaign. And there's even
Yeah.
an element later in the book that's important. That's called the Hellfire Club, which is the
Oh yeah,
same name
yeah.
as the Stranger Things Club, but it just
Uh-huh.
sounds, it sounds super D&D. I actually thought that name was kind of clunky. I didn't really think that it totally fit the like the medieval-ish fantasy world.
Right.
Kind of seemed a
Right.
little, I don't know, anachronistic as far as like it's a little too modern, but maybe just a little subtle nod there.
Yeah, it could be. I wonder, I think this would have come out around the same time as the most recent or the fourth season of Stranger Things, I believe. So definitely not drawn from that. But
Yeah, I think the name just happened to be the same, but it just seems like a name you might give your
yeah,
D&D group.
exactly. Yeah, and it seems like a little weird to be naming like a club. Maybe it's like club that throws it off for me
Yeah,
personally,
I
but
think Hellfire sounds fine, but like clubs in medieval
yeah.
setting, yeah, kind of maybe slightly jarring, but that is the setting of the book. So it's fairly traditional. It takes place in a smallish kingdom. It's fairly self-contained, at least this first book. There's some politics we're dealing with. When the story starts, this war has just finished, and now we're trying to kind of pick up the pieces and get the get the kingdom back in order. The war's taken like a massive toll. I think like half the population died, and there's this plague that's going on and these demons that are roaming the countryside, and it's just a big mess. And our party of heroes are all like part of the king's council, and they're off on this mission, but it all kind of feels strange. And
Yeah.
there's,
Are
yeah.
are we hopping into spoilers yet or
Why don't we do just kind of like a overall
okay. All right.
review? Like what would you give the story? What type of audience would enjoy it, type of thing?
Okay. So I I really like this story. I don't think it didn't blow me away. I think that a lot of my interest in this was driven by like the mystery behind like I could tell something was going on and the character as the story goes on like it's definitely hinted at more and more, but I couldn't figure it out. And so part of me is like it's hard to like try and resolve the two like this twist from the story itself and like figure out how much would I have liked it without it? How much did I like the characters?
Hmm.
Um, and so I think like overall I liked the story a little bit more than the characters. I didn't think the characters were terrible, but they just weren't like as dynamic or interesting. And you know, maybe that will move forward, or maybe that will the characters themselves will progress as I go into book two, and I'll like them some more. Um, but I mean, so overall, I would probably give this maybe like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Like it was the story was interesting. The characters, maybe not quite as interesting to me. But I really like the world too, and I want to explore more in it.
Yeah, I think I'm along the same lines as you there, that the characters are not bad, but they kind of feel like archetypes, and there's maybe not quite as much depth as as some other comparable stories. But I think especially the twist at the end is really compelling and really makes you want to keep on reading because that is well done. I think, I mean, I'm assuming that when this book was crafted, that was, it was all revolving around that, and we are making sure there was enough details to make it work and to kind of keep people off balance and also feel satisfying. And I thought it worked really well, and that ending really raised the book up quite a bit for me. But yeah, I'll probably say I'm about like a 7 out of 10 overall. So I'd say,
Okay.
as far as recommending, I think, most fantasy readers are gonna feel right at home in this type of story. There's nothing too unique or different about it up until the end. So maybe, I don't know, maybe if you're someone who's read a lot of books and you're looking for a story that has a lot of familiar beats that you're gonna enjoy and be able to get into pretty easily, but also looking for something, a little ambitious, maybe a little risky. I think this has that as well and delivers pretty well.
Yeah, so I think I would recommend it to primarily like fans of fantasy and epic fantasy. There are some fantasy books that I think, maybe like transcend genre are so good that I would recommend them to people who don't really regularly read fantasy or epic fantasy. Um,
Hmm.
I would kind of put it along the lines of Lycanius, maybe not quite as highly rated to me, but like similar story and world and characters.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison as far as it's a fantasy type of story, fantasy setting that we're familiar with, that we feel at home in. It's a story that's pretty easy to just kind of follow along in. The characters are decent, not amazing, not bad, but both Icanius and The Lost War have some cool twistiness to it.
Perfect. Now, one thing that I didn't find out until after I finished the book, I think this was like a finalist or a winner for some sort of like science fiction fantasy award.
I think it was Mark Lawrence's thing, the self-published.
Oh,
The
self-pub.
self,
Okay.
yeah,
And did it win that?
SPFFBO.
SPFBO.
It was at
Okay.
least a finalist. I don't know if it won or not.
Okay. Self-published fantasy blog off.
Hmm. Yeah, that contest has spun up and given light to a lot of pretty good stories over the years.
Yeah, so okay, this was the winner in 2020 and it scored 8.35 out of 10. So, and it was obviously self-published back then, but now it was picked up by Orbit and published in 2023. So, big
Hmm.
congrats to Justin Lee Anderson for, making the jump from self-published to traditionally published.
And just according to the internet, hopefully this is accurate, this is his first published book, which is pretty impressive because I think it's pretty polished.
For sure. It certainly blows out of the water whatever I could put out.
Hmm.
And
I've
part of the appeal for reading this for me is just seeing like an author who is willing to like discuss his book with like our Fantology book club. We're by no means like a huge established podcast, and so I love authors that will like give us the time. And obviously like they're amazing authors who are bigger who just can't um you know give time to every
right,
single
right.
fan that they have. So not necessarily not a dig at them by any means, but um gotta love people like Justin Lee Anderson.
For sure. And I've now read three SPFBO award finals or winners. So I've also read The Sword of Kaigen and By Blood, by Salt, which was the most recent one. And I didn't really love By Blood, by Salt. That was another book club book we did.
Oh,
And
okay.
this The Lost War was much better than that. The Sword of Kaigen w was quite good, but they're two very different types of books.
Mhm.
Overall, I might have enjoyed this one more. Sword of Kaigen had some great stuff as well in it, but also some drawbacks. And I think overall, I mean, if you told me there was a sequel coming out, I would be more excited for the sequel. So I am looking forward to getting into to book three.
Okay. Well, that's just some helpful background, I think, on the story itself, the writing, the publishing.
Hmm.
Might pique some interest for a listener.
Yeah, and I did see a review that said someone was saying initially when they read it as part of the self-published competition, they didn't really love it, and then Orbit picked it up, and I think as part of that there was a fairly extensive editing pass, and what came out was maybe a more polished final product.
Hmm.
So that would be interesting context. We obviously didn't read both, but it sounds like the current published version is maybe improved even from the contest winner days.
That would be interesting. Like maybe not to read the previous version, but just know like the primary differences in plot.
Hmm. Like what was changed and why and how they just
Right.
arrived at those decisions. Yeah,
Mhm.
that would be interesting.
Now I want to go back in time to when we discussed it for our Fantology book club and talk to Justin Lee Anderson about it. Maybe another
Yeah,
time,
another time.
once
All
time
right, yeah,
travel's
so
invented.
let's talk about spoilers a little bit here. So, do you want to just talk about the twist and kind of go from there? I mean, we can talk through the different characters and a few events as well, but probably makes sense to just go straight for the twist because that really was the big thing.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah. So
so
yeah.
I really liked how it was set up. The thing that I wanted to bring up a little bit earlier was how he used the fact he took advantage of like, exploring a world and kind of like the fog you have when you're just picking up a new book in a new world, you don't really understand exactly what's going up. I felt like
Hmm.
he exploited that in a good way, to like the advantage of this twist where it kind of like hid a lot of the fog that these characters have at this time because their minds have been altered. So it's like, there's a lot that they themselves like have been changed in their mind. They don't really like understand like how they got to where they're at themselves. And so I like the fact that Justin Lee Anderson used like the beginning of a new world, new book to mask that. Um,
Yeah, so I guess question for you as a reader, did you ever were you ever confused as to what was going on to the point where you were like, this should be explained more. I don't really get it because that's a pretty fine line to walk because obviously the characters themselves don't understand what's going on and it's kind of difficult to hide that, but you can't just explain it or the twist is revealed. So I think that was
yeah.
probably pretty tricky to set up.
I mean, f for me, I wasn't really ever confused because it was clear that like both from there were like a lot of instances and characters like trying to remember something and not being able to, and as well as the book's name is The Lost War. So it was like pretty clear that like a spell had been cast or something had tampered with the memories of a lot of people. So I, as a reader, like I was just kind of like chalking it up to like, that there's like this greater overarching mystery that we haven't been able to figure out. And it's all related. So I wasn't ever like frustrated by it as I was
Mm.
reading it. Um,
Okay. So you felt like you picked up on it pretty well to the point where like when the twist happened, you're like, "Oh, okay, that's what it is." It didn't like pull the rug out from under you completely.
Um, right. Yeah, it didn't pull the rug out. Definitely not. I strongly suspected something was going on. Um, I thought that like people had just like it was like a forgetting spell. And and then towards the end, like towards the reveal, I was like, oh, maybe like Mynagog somehow like switched bodies with Janaeus. Um,
Mm.
and so th those were kind of like my two running theories. And obviously, the big twist is that Janaeus, the mind, was a mind druid, and he, erased um, any memory of a mind druid, as well as made people think that he was this benevolent king that Mynagog was. The so interesting, another interesting backstory. Before like a long time ago we were like kind of working on like a collaborative book a little bit at Phantology.
Okay.
I
Yeah. Uh-huh.
so I wasn't really doing any of the writing. I was just like doing a little bit of the world building. It was primarily you guys doing the writing. But like it was essentially like two kingdoms were at war, and like the twist was gonna be, is it okay if I reveal this? Do we think that we'll ever publish this?
Eh, maybe just say it kind of vaguely.
Okay, well, um there's a character in the book whose name is Janice, and I think Janice is related to like a Roman mythology or Greek or something, basically
Right.
meaning like
Roman two faces, yeah.
two faces. And so this king's name was Janaeus, and that also had me suspicious of him from the beginning.
Ah,
Um,
interesting. I like that.
so um, just another little interesting um, plot point unique to Phantology, or not plot point, but I don't
Little
know.
connection there for you.
Yeah, little
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
connection there. But I really liked the mystery itself. I liked that, it kind of explained things pretty cleanly. It put things in place. Like things like I love mysteries where things just instantly click and you don't necessarily need to explain everything. Um, Although, I think one weak point was there was maybe a little bit too much exposition around this point, around the point of the twist, where it was like Mynagog basically explains it, and then suddenly you get like this wall of text, or sorry, Aronach, Aronach like casts the spell to like clear his head, and then it
Hmm.
was like you get hit with like this wall of um, oh, this is like what actually happened. I think I
Right.
would have maybe appreciated like maybe his memories coming back in pieces or something along those lines. And like slowly it's like, more and more and more.
Probably kind of tricky because the book was wrapped really by that point. Like that was very
Yeah.
much the end. So it's like it feels like you kind of have to explain what you're doing at the end of the book, but yeah, maybe it would make more sense to slowly dole out more. But I mean, do you feel like it's all been explained? Maybe there's more to come in the next book?
Um, for the most part, like most of it has been explained. Um, I guess there's still I mean, not that like all the plot points have been tied up, obviously, because they haven't. They haven't even really faced Janaeus at the end of
Hmm.
this book. And so it doesn't necessarily like feel like the end of like a major battle or like a resolution of a large conflict. More like you just kind of have clarity in the overall situation. Um, and there are some things that I'm still like a little confused on, primarily around like the members of the Hellfire Club that they were at war against. So there was like Janaeus, who was the mind druid, and then there were Angel Weir, who was the
The
he
demon
was like
guy.
the demon druid, and then there was one other, I forget their name, who was the raised the necromancy druid. And
Right.
we don't really know much about that person if they're still alive. At least I don't think we know if they're still alive. Um,
Yes, there are. So that person's name is Shayela, and there is a hint as to what's going on with this dead razor, what a necromancer, I guess.
oh,
But
okay. Is it related to the messenger?
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. I thought the messenger thing was a little strange. Like it's kind of a one-off thing. There's like a chapter towards the beginning with the messenger, and then nothing, and then like pops up again in the epilogue. Like I get that it's like, a connection. It's supposed to be maybe easing you into some stuff that happens in the second book because this plot point plays out in the second book and it's a really cool scene.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
don't know. It maybe felt a little out of place in this book because there's just so much else that's going on. It kind of feels a little out of place.
Okay. Yeah, it was a little confusing. Like there that was one point where I kept like you obviously don't think it's gonna end well for the messenger when he's like asking to like can I stay with you guys? Like I'm worried about like being out at night, and they're like, "Yeah, you can stay with us." And you're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, something bad's gonna happen to you." Um and but then like I like you just spend a while kind of like wondering like, "Oh, how is this gonna play into it?" And then you just almost forget about it. And I didn't even remember the messenger's name until like I think I was looking at like a recap or something, and then it mentioned like um it was the same
Dargan,
messenger.
Argyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, when you go into the epilogue, you're like, wait, who is this?
Hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty long book. And, for the epilogue to be just referencing something that happened way at the beginning, yeah, that probably wasn't my favorite. That and the whole like Heart of Devastation MacGuffin thing, I
Hmm.
didn't really love that either. That just kind of felt like, oh, we've got this relic that's gonna make the plot work. I don't really
Yeah.
love that.
And it's a little bit of a silly name. I don't know, Heart of Devastation. It's kind of like Hellfire Club for me, at
Yeah.
least. But I thought it was like kind of a cool idea how it goes into like the creation of this relic and like why it's powerful, and um so I liked it overall. So the one thing that I maybe my favorite part about this twist is the
Hmm.
fact that Aronach and Alondria like weren't actually lovers. They were just like really good friends. And so it's like got me thinking like so what was the point? And I think they ask these questions to themselves at the end of the book. They're
Right.
like they're like, why did he do this? Was it just like some cruel joke? Like, was it just because he couldn't like explain our proximity to each other otherwise? So I think it's gonna be like make for a really interesting relationship dynamic
Hmm.
later on. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, because it seemed like they have a pretty comfortable, like long-term romantic situation here,
yeah,
and it really does kind of mess things up.
and I mean there was really no like hint about it. Um, I feel like the fact that they were just friends, like maybe that could have been alluded to a little bit better, like some, I don't know, like apprehension, like kissing with somebody that couldn't be explained. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, so it's oh the twist with Samily was cool too, where she was in fact a time druid and not a
They thought,
healer.
yeah, they thought she was this like chosen one healer, but in fact she was a time druid. And I thought that was clever how that played into the whole thing with the blackening and how they were trying to heal the blackening, and then she was like going to do it, and then of course she got blackened as well because she's not actually a healer, she's a time druid. Like that all worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And and then it was a little funny, a little like video game slash D&D-esque towards the end where she like starts to figure out her abilities and she's like, yeah, that was our third time fighting that demon or something. And they're like, we died 2 times before beating it. And she's like, yeah, one time it was you, the other time it was you, and then like the last time it was like me or something, or like she like
Hmm.
broke her back or something along those lines. Um, which is, kind of like in a video game where you die over and over again.
Right. But eventually you figure out the right sequence in order
Hmm.
to play out and get the
Yeah.
victory.
It's like Elden Ring, where you're fighting like some huge like beast that
Uh-huh.
is so unnatural and
Like, all right, run in there, get the runes. Let's try fighting him
mhm.
again. Yeah, I thought Samly and the Whitethorns and Mariston was there were some hints there, right? Like he
Right.
thought he was a monk, but it turns out he's actually, the greatest warrior, whatever. And so I guess Janaeus' plan there was to take him off the board and just convince him that he's this peaceful dude, but at the same time, like it doesn't quite add up, and you kind of wonder about this and like stuff
Hmm.
like that. Like to that level, I thought it was set up really well.
It's the whole time I was thinking that like Mariston was secretly bad. Like just because of like he seemed like
Mm,
very sad about something and that like Samly like kept thinking like why does he seem so sad? Like he's just this great guy. And I thought, he was somehow going to be like this villain who was, reluctant about like having to do what he's doing, but like it's ultimately, in his villain logic for the greater good. Um, so that caught me by surprise that he was in fact like a white thorn and it was his armor that they had passed on the road. Um, so it is funny like turning these characters on their heads, like and Naria, how she was actually like the queen and she was a pirate before
hmm.
and so um I really liked, rediscovering who these characters actually were. Did it was Samily anything other than a white thorn?
I don't remember if she has a different backstory or not. It might go more into that in the second book.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, maybe there are a few like some lingering questions that I have.
Yeah, it kind of seems like her and the blacksmith, Vestin, right? That was his name.
Yeah, Vastin.
Yeah, yeah, Vestin. Those two characters, they just didn't seem like as previously important, or at least like not known to Janaeus. So Janaeus was mostly messing with the big pieces on the
Mm,
board, his Hellfire people, the leaders of
okay.
the kingdom throughout the war. And so
Yeah.
others, would have had their memory modified, but it seems like he didn't pay like as much individual attention to,
Okay.
the 500,000. I think it says there's like 1 million people in the country at one point. So a lot of people are just kind of going through the same like base
You just make
rewrites.
Yeah, you just make like the simple like, oh yeah, Minagog is the bad guy, Janaeus is the king.
Hmm.
Although,
Hmm.
so Vastin, I was thinking like he was gonna be like almost the protagonist of the like Aronach was like gonna train him, and he was
Oh, kind of the way he was introduced as,
yeah, he's like
yeah, as the
introduced
common
as
man joining up on the adventure. Yeah.
right, right. And I mean he still could be in future books, but it was like he got blackened and taken out of the story pretty early on.
So it's kind of interesting how many different issues there are to deal with. You know, there's the blackening, there's the demons roving around, there's obviously the massive memory thing. There's the oh,
Necromancy,
what is the name of there's like the rebel group, not the rebel group,
the
but they're
Reavers.
yeah, the yeah, right. So these people were allied with the kingdom previously, but Janaeus messed with their memory as well. So there's kind of this like sub war that's still going on. So stuff is just like is in terrible shape here, and I think that sets up really well for the rest of the series. Where this book we introduced a lot of things, made you think you knew what was going on. Now we're changing it all. Now we think
Hmm.
we have a pretty good idea of what's actually going on, but we have all of these interesting conflicts set up and all of these interesting characters. So, I mean, for a first book, like this pretty solid introduction to a story.
Right. So here's what I'm like a little worried about moving on to the next the next stories. It's like so much of this first story is about like the fact that their minds have been tampered with, their memories have been tampered with.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily know the characters until the end because they don't really know who they are. And I really like that. But now that like this has been resolved and you have more clarity on this situation, books two, three, four are going to be much more about like the characters themselves, like this overarching conflict, and less on like the mystery, like trying to resolve this large mystery of what's going on. And
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was like the mystery was a big part of why I liked it, why I continue to read it. So
Mm.
it just means that like more of the slack is gonna have to be picked up with the character work, with the story.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If I can make a sports analogy, since it is sports season, it's kind of like if you've got a team that has a gimmicky approach to the game and they win a game because they do something unexpected or whatever, you know, it's really exciting and the other team's not ready for it. But then you can't replicate this because their next game is going to be against a better
Mm,
team, or they've put this gimmick on film. It's not going to work again. So now they've got to be good, like just straight up. They've got to do the
right.
basic strategy pretty well. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. Like the gimmick was cool, the twist was fun, it
Hmm.
made for a pretty good book, and we've got a lot of story beats set up. We've got a good team here, but can we execute like subsequent books that are a
Right.
little more, you know, we've got to have the strong characters, we've got to have a cohesive plot all the way through without relying on another twist. Or I don't know, maybe he's got another huge twist that continues to
Yeah.
work. I mean, that would
Very.
be yeah, that
It
would be
very
something.
well could, and I think that would be some masterwork from an author. Like if you can continue to hide, like a later if you can leave like credible breadcrumbs throughout this book, the next book, and like have reveals later on that are inevitable. But what does Sanderson say? They should be.
Surprising yet inevitable, I think is his thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
something like that.
Uh-huh.
Then I'll love it. Or I can't say I'll love it, but I will really like it.
Yeah.
Um,
You'll respect it for sure. Right.
I'll
But
respect
it
it.
is tough because the more you put into one twist, it kind of, you know, you're kind of slowly inching yourself into like, here's what the story is. Eventually, the story has to be,
Hmm.
you know, something a little more defined rather than, oh, and then there's this twist and this twist. And eventually, you've got to have, you know, okay, here's what's actually happening. And what's actually happening needs to be good straight up.
Hmm. I feel like it's kind of like Christopher Nolan, where like so many of his early movies like revolved around these twists. Like
Mm.
Memento, um, The Prestige. Um, I feel like there's at least one other one that I'm forgetting. But it's like you can't just be the director who's known for twists because then people go into your movie and they're like, okay, what's the gimmick gonna be here? Anyways, your
Hmm.
sports analogy was great. Like you've got a really good trick play, then you show it and it's successful, but you can't just do the trick play because now everybody's seen it and they can prep for it.
Right. Right. All right. So as we end the book, for me, at the end of this first book, the biggest like looming thing was half the party has been sent off to go talk to Janaeus, right? And they're not aware of what the reader and Aranok, Alandria, and Samily now know. So this seems like a big impending disaster, right?
So I think it was just like Rasa or Rasa, the shapeshifter.
Oh, was it just her? I thought like Nerea went as well, or maybe I'm misremembering.
So um if I remember correctly, they like right before they went off to confront Minagog, they told like the shapeshifter, I forget her name, but I know it started with an R.
No,
Like,
it
hey,
is
go
it's Rasa. Yeah.
Rasa. They
Right,
told
because
her like,
she can fly, so she's gonna go
yeah,
deliver the
they're
message,
like,
right?
hey,
Okay.
go tell Janaeus like, something weird's going on here, and we're gonna go figure it out. And then afterwards, they're like, crap, we just sent her straight to him, and now they're worried like she's gonna go to him, tell him, and then he's just gonna recast this memory or some other memory spell.
Hmm.
And so
Which,
but I mean, you do know that, so I don't think he's gonna recast a memory spell. But you do know he's a memory druid, so he's gonna be playing with people's minds. And he's got
hmm.
the Heart of Devastation, so he can do some pretty powerful stuff. Um, so it will be interesting to see how that plays into it in the future.
Cool. So are you going to continue reading?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if I'm going to go directly into book two, but it's definitely on my TBR.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna persuade you to read it sooner rather than later, so then
Yeah,
we can be on the same page and then we can read The Damned King together.
yeah, for sure.
Excellent. All right, if you like what we're doing with Phantology, you can hop on our Discord, as previously mentioned. Every now and then we get people to the extent and quality of Justin Lee Anderson on. Can't promise that for every book club, obviously, but yeah, we have monthly book clubs where we usually, a few of us are getting together and chatting about books. We also have just a bunch of general channels and a good time, open to anyone, so you can join. Episode or not episode. Discord invites are on the episode description below. Until next time, Ryan, yeah, it's been real. Don't let your memories get modified unexpectedly and have your whole
Yeah,
life rewritten.
the the fantasy equivalent of that is just not having read the first book in a long time and then like jumping into the second book and your like memory of the plot events is very hazy. And so you're like, wait,
Uh,
what's going on here?
yeah. Yeah, thankfully there is a little recap of book one and book two, The Bitter Crown, which not a lot of authors do, but I wish they would do more often because this is super
Yeah.
helpful especially
Yeah.
when we have to wait, a year and a half, 2 years, and not a knock on authors taking their time to write, but we're reading a lot of books in the meantime. It's there's a lot of details in these books, so the
It's
summaries are
especially
awesome.
especially helpful for like, smaller books with smaller like audiences where, you might
Hmm.
not have like a wiki depicting all the events like Stormlight Archive, there's recaps out there, but um love it when authors do that. So, all right,
Fantastic.
Stephen.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot. It was fun.
See you later.